Hey, everybody. It is Eric Green. Welcome to the Tax Rep Network podcast. This morning will be fairly quick. It's just about the new year. We're going to kick off 2020, and I've gotten a bunch of emails from folks which I wanted to respond to. As you may recall, the last podcast I did, and I'm doing them about every 2 weeks. The last podcast that we had, I talked about enforcement in 2020, and a number of you did email me and basically said, look, I'm doing representation, or I want to do representation, and what do I think about launching the practice? Look, here's what I'm thinking. There's been no better time to launch the practice, okay? And what I wanted to do now, and I called it why 2020 is the year you're going to add an extra 100,000 to your bottom line. And the reason we're going to do this is you're going to start marketing for this. You're going to start really doing representation. You're going to give up on what is a dying industry of 1040s, not completely, but that is not your growth area. The growth area is in representation, and frankly, the IRS is going to drive this themselves, all right? Let me explain. So first of all, very quickly, let's talk about the landscape. Where are we? Well, there are a number of things we do know, and if you've taken one of my webinars recently, when I go through the statistics, you've seen this. The average price of a 1040 has fallen from around $360 in America to around $260. It's down about 25% over the last 5 years. That is according to the National Society of Accountants, which publishes, I think every year or every other year, the average price of a 1040 in America. And a lot of that is being driven, one, because a 1040 has become a commodity. It's just a commodity item, right? I can go almost on any street corner in America, and there's one of these big chains that will sit and bang out a 1040 for 150, or actually we know the average is 261. So on average, $261. What that means is if you're going to actually make the money that you want to make, you need to be doing a whole lot of 1040s, all right? And the risk is with 1040s, right? Office of Professional Responsibility, the auditors, preparer penalties. They're going after, practitioners left and right. My argument to you is this. There's no money in 1040s. Now, if you're doing 1040s, I'm not suggesting you give up and get rid of your practice. Now, listen, you may want to eventually. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can do your 1040s, but one, aren't you sick of tax season? And two, wouldn't you rather just make more money? I mean, I know people say, well, I could do 2 or 3 1040s in an hour. Yeah, bull, you can. That is bullshit. There's no way you're doing a 1040 properly in that amount of time, all right? By the time you actually get the information from the client, review it, get it into the return, and assuming it's very, very simple, you could probably do it in an hour. Maybe a little less. But for the most part, if there's a Schedule C or something and you're doing your job, it's 2 hours minimum. What does that mean? Well, that means really you're working for about $130 an hour, and then you've got all your overhead and your other expenses. You got the software, you probably have a staff person, maybe part-time helping you. You got a copy or a scanner, the electric, the rent. You're not making much. You're just not making much. What if, with a laptop, an e-fax line, you could be making $300-400 an hour? You may or may not even need staff. You may or may not even need space, all right? Because what I do, I mean, we have an office because I've got all these people here because we're a law firm. We do things other than representation. We do M&A work and estate planning, and we have all kinds of litigation going on. But Eric Green could go sit in my living room and basically run my practice. I would probably have to have a virtual assistant help me with some of the stuff. That's it. All right. Representation is not a commodity. It is a specialized service that you can bill for and get retainers up front. And I will tell you this. All right. There are 22 million reasons to get into representation. Now, again, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know where I come up with that number. There are close to 15 million taxpayers in the collection division inventory. There are more than 7 million non-filers that the IRS has identified and are going after. And Chuck Reddick, who is our commissioner, has brought over Eric Hilton to be small business self-employed division commissioner. What's so special about that? As I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, Eric Hilton was, prior to that, the deputy chief of IRS criminal investigation. What Eric and Chuck both said together in Vegas, enforcement is back with a capital E. This is the year you should get into doing representation. Okay? If you're an EA or a CPA or an attorney, you've got all the skills. You might need a little training. We got your back on that. All right? But this is the year that you should be doing this. All right? I polled a bunch of my members 6 months ago. The average non-filer case, almost just under $18,000 in fees, because you're talking about returns, compliance, bookkeeping, and then you got to resolve the federal issue, and often there's a state issue, because if they didn't pay the feds, they probably didn't pay the state. You could have sales tax problems, payroll tax problems, all kinds of problems. All right, so the opportunity is there. All right, so the last thing, and this came in from a bunch of the emails, is sort of, where do I begin? Should I join Tax Rep? You know, here's what I would do. If you're new to this, go get the books. I'll put these links in the description. Start with the books. All right, what is it, $150? Start with the books, go through the books, start marketing, start finding clients. All right, and the key thing, how do you find clients? Because that also comes up frequently. If you're a tax practitioner already, the way you find clients, well, let's back up. Given that there are 22 million Americans who are in need of help, either they're in the collection division inventory or they're probably going to be, all right, the non-filers. What do you have to do to find the work? Not much. People need to know that you do this. There are very few people in America that do this. It is not lawyers, right? It's not lawyers, and I can explain why in a moment, all right? Although if you are a lawyer listening to this, you should add representation to your practice, all right? Stop doing fucking real estate closings and Chapter 7 bankruptcies. There's no money in it, all right? Get into something where there's money. But the way you get clients, Anthony DeLucia, who was my first Tax Rep member, sat through, because when I created the IRS, the CCH IRS Representation Certificate Program, and I don't know if I've ever done this on the podcast, where Tax Rep actually came from. Tax Rep started because I had an accountant, CPA, who I'm still friends with to this day, who approached me and said, look, so here's what I do. I would go and speak to groups, and I just got work. That's how I built $1 million practice. Show up, blab, and the phone rings, right? That's just how it happens. A friend of mine got me into blogging. Now I got people they're just calling the firm, showing up with printed versions of my blog entries. All the stuff I teach inside Tax Rep to how to market, that's exactly what I do. Well, the CPA approaches me and said, look, I would pay you if you would teach me to do this. It's interesting. So he and I, over the course of a few months, go through stuff, and I end up creating an 8-hour training program. Well, I got to test it. So I get a bunch of accountants and lawyers that are friends of mine in a room, and for 8 hours, I made them sit through this. And then, got feedback. This was good. This wasn't good, whatever. And you start tweaking and changing. One of them, Anthony DeLucia, literally went back to his practice and did a 1-page newsletter, which we actually have inside the Tax Rep area for the members, that he sent to his client, all of his clients, which were about 400, 450, basically one page, what to do if you can't pay the taxes. Off it went. And he covered the very basics, right? Installment agreements, offers, uncollectible, whatever. First year, $148,000, I think it is, he added to his bottom. It was more than $140,000 added to the bottom line. He said within 24 hours, he had $18,000 in retainers. The biggest thing for you is to get the word out that you do this. Now, inside Tax Rep, we're doing a lot more. Starting in 2020, we're actually having a monthly marketing call, and it's not just going to be with me. I'm bringing in other experts in marketing, so pay-per-click and better email marketing and all these things that I've not really had to do. Of course, I'll be doing some of them as far as the blogging and some of the other stuff we do, the newsletters. But the point being is that it's not that hard to find this work. It does take a little bit of effort. You got to put in the effort. But we have Tax Rep members that have added more than $250,000 to their bottom line. Make 2020 the year that you do this. So where do you begin? To come full circle, first thing I would do, get the books, go through the books. Get started that way. Once you have your first client or two, join Tax Rep, right? Because that's when you want to consult with us. You want us to review all of that. If you're interested in getting into the training and want to jump into Tax Rep immediately, that's fine. We have over 100 hours of training. The Offer and Compromise Masterclass, which I've been recording, should be posted by the end of this week. Right, so we have master classes on collection, on payroll tax problems, on offers and compromise. And as I said, there's, I think, 20 hours of the deep dive programs on exams and in a spouse and all the other stuff we have. All right, so the training is all there. Our checklists are there. By the way, I just updated for the members. The FOIA request for the administrative file, there's now a sample letter Word document you can use. The FOIA request for your own CAF listing to revoke powers, that's in there now. A closing letter for the offers, all right, is in there, as well as updated retainer agreements engagement letters. So all of that has now been updated as well. Everything's there that you need to do. Then the demand for folks who can do this is there. And the last thought I want to give you is what I mentioned, why lawyers are not the people doing this. And the reason that lawyers are not the ones doing this. And again, let's go back. When I did the CCH program, they asked me to go and get them some numbers. And one was, how many attorneys are actually doing this? And so what we did is we went through the American Bar Association directory and the Martindale-Hubbell directory, and of course removed the duplicates and all that. We came up with 986 attorneys across the country that listed either IRS representation or tax controversy as an area that they specialized in. Well, I did that again about 9 months ago. It's 173. Now, if you're wondering why the drop suddenly, like where did all these lawyers go? I'm going to use Connecticut, where I am, as sort of an illustration of this, because it's the same across the country. What used to happen is, as an attorney, got out of law school, you went to work for the government. You did 4 years. That was the deal. You signed on for 4 years. At the end of 4 years, you would leave and go into private practice, either your own practice or you'd go join a firm, and then you went and actually made real money. So you got trained by the government, and then you left. So when I moved to Connecticut in 2001 from Boston, there were 13 of us that did this sort of work. Well, fast forward. Nobody leaves the government anymore. They stay till they get their pensions. The law firms and accounting firms, being a partner doesn't mean anything anymore. They're throwing partners out left and right. I get the American Bar Association newsletter. Firms downsizing, right-sizing. Some firms have imploded. Big firms, I'm shocked at some of the firms that have imploded. So being in private practice isn't the lockstep, trail to riches that it used to be. So people don't leave the government anymore. And all those folks that were here in Connecticut, well, they're all now in their 70s. So they're retired. There are actually 4 Connecticut attorneys that focus on this. 3 of them are at our firm. There's one other gentleman who does this as well, who's, again, 10 years older than I am and is talking now about retiring. All right. So people are retiring. No one's leaving the government anymore. So it is not lawyers that are driving the ship here. EAs and CPAs have to step in and take this area over, and they should. Very little gets litigated. For the most part, it's an administrative practice. If you're an EA or a CPA, you can do this. If you don't know how, we'll teach you. That's easy. If you can do a 1040, you can do an offer, right? If you can do a 1040 or a financial statement, you can do an innocent spouse case. It's not that complicated, right? You have to understand the rules. I get that. You want to consult with us as you're learning. That's what we're here for, all right? Go check out Tax Rep LLC. Go check out the books. Make this year the year you start making real money, all right? Any questions, go ahead and email me, all right? I'm happy to get the questions. Tax Rep members, on the 7th, January 7th, we're doing our open mic Q&A. It'll be a Zoom call. Actually, maybe a GoToWebinar. We'll figure that part out, but we're going to do every month now. We're going to do an open Q&A. So please keep the questions coming in. We're going to do that. We're going to do a case study of the month, and we're going to do our marketing call of the month. First month, Sandy Leva from Accountants Accelerator is going to be joining us. She will be talking about how to 10x your practice. All right? Because I told my members who crossed the threshold of 250, we have about 14 of them. I said, great, 500,000. That's the next goal. Let's go. All right? We keep pushing, right? We keep pushing the envelope up. So with that, I hope everyone has a healthy, happy, safe new year, okay? Go check out Tax Rep LLC. Go check out the books. Members, look for the email on those dates. If you're not a member, join now, because we got some really cool stuff coming up in the next 30 days. Again, the offer masterclass will be posted. All of the new checklists are up there now. You can download them. They're there. If you join Tax Rep, by the way, you get the books for free. So join Tax Rep before you buy the books. If you've bought the books and join, let us know. We'll credit you back for the books. No problem. All right. If you bought those books in the last 30 days, we'll absolutely credit you back for them. All right. Get into the masterclass. Get on the monthly calls. Let's make this the year that everyone makes an extra $100,000. Be safe. Be happy. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.